Higher LDL cholesterol actually corresponds with longevity. You live longer if your LDL is higher. It is the case that your brain runs better on ketones and you're getting rid of things and brain fog and all these other sorts of things that impede the normal functioning of your brain. I don't think you necessarily need to fast unless you have a cancer diagnosis, and then that can be beneficial for that. There's a study out of Sweden just this past year with 44,000 people looking at the best biomarkers to predict living over 100, and they found Okay, hello everyone. Today's live is for January 11th, and that's in the US, and the 12th in Australia. Thank you everyone for joining. I think that there's a bit of a mix-up with the dates and times just because I was traveling, and so it didn't. I don't think it got the time zones right. So sorry about that for everyone who sort of signed on earlier. But anyway, glad to see everyone here. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll start with a question here. Is from Aurora Matera. Says, hello, Dr. Chaffy. How to reverse Parkinson's? What are your specific recommendations and advice on this? Well, unfortunately, I don't know of any way to actually reverse Parkinson's and to make it go away. The best thing to do is try to prevent it. We don't really know the best ways to do that either. However, there are some studies that could shed some light on that, which are some that show that higher LDL cholesterol over the course of your life is protective against things like Parkinson's as well as Alzheimer's. And so, not buying into the whole cholesterol fraud theory of heart disease could help you. We've been strategically and aggressively trying to lower cholesterol through diet, lifestyle, and medications for the last 40 years, 50 years. And yet heart disease rates are going up. Some fraudulent bad actors who want to mislead you will try to then switch the argument and say, well, cardiac related deaths or cardiovascular deaths peaked in the 60s and 70s and then started to decline after we started doing all these interventions. And that's not what we just said. We said the rates are going up. So first-time heart attacks are going up. The prevalence and incidence is going up. And so just because we are surviving them more, because we have better interventions, and actually a lot of people stop smoking. A lot of people stop smoking in this time too. And yet rates are still going up. Deaths have gone down. Rates are going up. And so if cholesterol were the end-all be-all cause of heart disease, then the rates should go down, but they don't. So if you don't buy into that, that could potentially be helpful in preventing. It could also, if anything, is able to help prevent something. It's a potential that it could improve symptoms when you actually have the issue as well. So that's something to think about. There's also a study out of, I believe, Denmark that looked at over something like 25 years of people who got their vagus nerve section. So they cut that off. It's called a vagotomy. And they had a theory that lectins from plant toxins could actually track up the vagus nerve. And this has actually been shown on imaging. This actually shown that it can actually track up your vagus nerve up into your brain. And so they thought, is this something that could damage your brain? Is this something that could be related to Parkinson's? And they found that if in people that they cut this in over 25 years, that they had a 66% reduction in their rates of Parkinsonism as compared to the rest of the population. So it's interesting. So what does that mean? That means that if you eat what you're supposed to eat and your cholesterol is what it's supposed to be, you may be protected, or it may help you in your Parkinson's journey. Or not eating a bunch of plants with a bunch of plant toxins that are bad for your brain and neurotoxic and can track up your vagus nerve and kill damage parts of your brain, that may help as well. So the brain is also made out of largely fat as well as cholesterol. And so if we're talking about damage to the brain, if we're talking about trying to heal the brain, if we're talking about having the brain function as well as possible, you need specific animal fats like DHA and EPA. 20% of your brain is DHA. So the physical structures of the brain are DHA, a lot of them. And a lot of the physical structures are also made out of cholesterol. So I think roughly 50% of of the myelination of your axons is cholesterol. So if you don't have enough cholesterol, this can be a problem. You can get demyelination or poor myelination of your neurons, and then you don't run properly. And so, this only comes from animal fats. This only comes from meat. It does not come from plants, no matter what anyone tells you. And so that is something that you would benefit by. And then being in a state of ketosis where you have an abundance of ketones, because that's your brain's primary energy source for a large majority of your brain, that's going to let your brain work better. And so hopefully that can help improve symptoms. It will improve people's lives in many, many, many other ways. It may help slow down progression. It may even stop progression. It just depends on the individual. There are other factors that go on. There are certainly other causes of Parkinsonism, most likely. We don't know them all. But I have seen people at least helped by going on what is our natural diet, a carnivore diet, a high-fat animal diet, meat-based diet. So you're getting a lot of fat, you're getting a lot of omega-3s, and you're cutting out all those other things that can harm your brain, like carbohydrates, like sugar, like alcohol, and like plant toxins. We don't know all the ones that are neurotoxic because there's a million of them that we know about. And so, playing odds and just being safe, you just avoid all of them. And then you're on safer ground. You don't need any of them. We know that, right? There's entire civilizations going back till forever that have never eaten a plant or rarely eaten a plant or couldn't eat a plant because they're in the Arctic Circle on an ice floe during an ice age, and there are no plants. So the idea that you have to have plants is absurd on its face. And I would argue that you don't want it. So I do think that a carnivore diet it's like a broken record. I'm just going to tell you to eat meat, but I do think that it would help. I don't have any more hard data than that. After that, you just have to sort of, try it out and hope for the best. I have seen this help people, my own father included. And I have, and it will help in so many other ways as well, that even if it doesn't change the Parkinsonism, it will just improve their life in many dramatic ways. And the Parkinsonism won't be as much of a pain to deal with. And so, it's always going to be a benefit anyway. So hopefully that helps. Rogue Canine says, hello, Dr. Chaffy. Can a carnivore diet cure reactive hypoglycemia? Thanks. Yeah, well, it does really, because it normalizes your blood sugar. It normalizes your insulin. And so you will maintain a very low blood sugar level or low insulin level, and you'll make all the blood sugar and glycogen that you need. And that will maintain a very, very steady, solid state of your glucose levels. If you're on medication, if you're taking insulin, obviously this is a bit more of a balancing act. But if you don't have any of those sorts of issues, then no, you won't get reactive hypoglycemia. Reactive hypoglycemia means that you take in carbohydrates or some other sort of thing. And artificial sweeteners have actually been shown in some studies to cause reactive hypoglycemia, and other ones suggest that they don't, but there are people who do get that. So it's a possibility where you get a rise in your blood sugar. If you're taking in carbohydrates or sugar, you have a corresponding rise in your insulin, which stays up because it's a much longer half-life on insulin, and that drives the insulin down. Your body treats this as a toxicity. You have 4 grams of glucose in your body at any given time. And as little as 5 grams of glucose is a toxic dose and can eventually be a lethal dose over time. And your body responds to it as a toxin by trying to detox it, right? Raises insulin, gets that down below 4 grams. And then it goes too low. Now it goes lower than you want, and that's reactive hypoglycemia. So if you just don't eat carbohydrates in the first place, and you don't take in artificial sweeteners, you just stepped out of that whole scenario. So you won't get that. No. RB, thank you very much for the generous super chat. That's very kind of you. RB says, "Hello, Dr. Chaffy. I'm 9 months carnivore, and recently, in the past 2 weeks, my fingers go numb when I hold my phone and other stuff above chest level, even for just a minute." Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think that that's anything to do with a carnivore diet. Generally, that if it's a specific position that you're holding your phone and it's sort of is reproducible, that's generally you're just something's happening. You're sort of pinching on it. Could be that this is new and you've done this before and you've lost weight during this time, that now the nerves in your arm are just a bit more exposed, and just happens to be how you're holding it, just sort of putting a bit of pressure on that nerve. That would be my guess. I can't think of anything to do with the carnivore diet apart from weight loss, of making the nerve more accessible, that would predispose you to do that. The main thing would be, try to hold your phone in a different position, try to hold it in a different way. The things that you would expect to get neuropathy from, if there was an ongoing neuropathy, you would expect it to be more or less constant. It wouldn't be reproducible due to position. If it's reproducible due to position, it's generally down to a physical disruption where you're putting undue pressure on the nerves. And so that sounds like what that's going on. You're doing a similar motion, you're holding your hand in a similar way, and that's giving a similar response. And when you don't do that, it goes away. So that would be that would be what I would expect to be most likely in that case. I mean, there are things, that you can get, a disruption of your B vitamins and things like that. You can take, if someone's taking a lot of different B vitamins or a specific B vitamin, that can give a relative deficit in other B vitamins, which can elicit a neuropathy, because you need your B vitamins in balance. And so if you're getting out of balance, one is way out of balance, the other ones are relatively low, and now it acts like they're low. And so, but that's not what's happening here, because that would be a constant issue that you would have. Whereas this is a reproducible issue with the same positional, with the same, putting your hand in the same position. The B vitamins as well, you wouldn't expect that. Certainly not from a carnivore diet, because a carnivore diet has a very balanced set profile of B vitamins. So it's not like, if you were taking a specific B vitamin, and just that B vitamin, you could potentially get a problem. But this is certainly not in your question where you've mentioned that. If you are taking specific supplements and vitamins, you can always try stopping those. You will generally get everything you need just from meat. We're not eating wild meat anymore. It's not as nutritious as it used to be, or as grass-fed or wild game, or regeneratively raised animals. But it's really damn good, and almost everybody will be able to get everything they need just from skeletal muscle meat, from just the normal Safeway beef. And if it's not enough, you add in a bit of liver, you add in a bit of organs, and that's the only supplement that we need as carnivores. Is just a bit of the organs, and that should cover it. And that's a perfect balance of all the B's and all the vitamins and everything like that you need. So good luck with that. I would expect that that's just more of a positional thing, as opposed to any sort of problems that you're having with like a medical issue. I am Darvit. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you so much for, I'm assuming, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, bringing I'm assuming the Ehlers-Danlos PDF to my doctor in what looks like probably March 14th. I hope I'm reading that right. Well, if it's not, I apologize. But the Ehlers-Danlos, that's just something that seems to be affected and benefit. Well, everything's affected and benefited by your nutrition, optimal nutrition. But it's something that we think is just that we think is just genetic. It's just a collagen issue, and you don't make collagen properly, and therefore you don't have proper connective tissue. You get hypermobility, and then and that's just it. That's your life. But we have been seeing more and more people with hypermobility and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that seem to improve. Not even full carnivore, but just closer, and then eating a lot more meat and getting rid of carbs. For some reason, carbs seem to disrupt the proper collagen production as well. I have a theory on this. It's just that just like with vitamin C, you don't, if you're getting enough collagen, you're getting enough precursors to collagen by eating collagen, and you don't need to hydrolyze proline and lysine. You have enough hydroproline and hydrolysine available. You can make proper collagen. Scurvy is a connective tissue disorder, right? Ehlers-Danlos is a connective tissue disorder. So you're not making collagen properly. Okay. Well, just like with scurvy, if you take in enough of proper aminos and proteins, you don't need the vitamin C to make it de novo. And could that be the same with Ehlers-Danlos? If you're tasked with making your own collagen, it's not going to work too well. But if you don't have to, then it comes across as normal. Could be, that seems to fit the observed phenomena anyway. But at the end of the day, you eat more meat and you stop eating everything else largely, it seems to improve. And I have 3 patients that I've seen in my clinic who all have hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, normally getting a lot of joint dislocations and other sorts of symptoms, pain. And it helps. It helps significantly. And the closer they get to just eating meat and water and nothing else, the better their symptoms, the better they do as well. And so that's great. Hopefully your doctor listens and thinks about it, because the more clinicians we get that are treating this, that understand this, and they treat them properly, the sooner this goes away or becomes much less of an issue.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this replay of my YouTube Live. If you'd like to catch a live version and ask your own questions, please go to the next scheduled one, usually every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, see you then, and please enjoy the rest of the Q&A.
Primal Mike has a question. How is the thyroid function different on carnivore versus SAD diet? Should the thyroid blood markers be any different? Well, it's going to be multifactorial, but you're going to get rid of a lot of barriers in the way of normal thyroid function, and so this is going to open up. This is going to open up, just normal functioning. So what we see is people with borderline low or markedly low thyroid function improve. And so their TSH comes down, their free T3, free T4 goes up, their reverse T3 goes down. They get symptom resolution, things like that, or at least improvement. There are many, many, many different causes of thyroid dysfunction. So it's hard to sort of say, just a sort of one size fits all answer to that. But even in the autoimmune side of things, like Hashimoto's or even Graves' disease, it simply reduces the autoantibodies, right? And so you stop damaging your thyroid. And so people with Graves' disease, and I have a couple patients with Graves' disease that improve on a carnivore diet. They're at, and Hashimoto's, I don't even know, probably close to 100 patients at our clinic with Hashimoto's. It is a wildly underdiagnosed disease. And the reason that we pick it up more is because we don't just look at the TSH and like, oh yeah, it's under 4, so that's fine. Under 4 is not fine. Under 2 is fine. Under 1.5 is a lot better. And so we catch things a bit earlier. And so we look at this and other sort of markers in the thyroid and say, okay, well, look, this is a little off. You're symptomatic, and not markedly so, but there's there's definitely symptoms there. Why is your thyroid a little off? You check your antibodies. Lo and behold, you have Hashimoto's antibodies. It is wildly underdiagnosed. And that's because no one diagnoses it or even looks for it until it's a bloody catastrophe, and their TSH is 13, and they barely have any thyroid function, and then they go, oh, okay, well, what could be causing it? Let's check Hashimoto's. Well, what do you know? It's in the thousands. Your antibodies are in the thousands. That's a little late to pick that up. There were signs before that. Generally, those people have been going to their doctor for the last several years saying, hey, I feel like crap. I feel like crap. I feel like crap. Oh, but your thyroid is fine. It's not fine. It's just we're looking at these reference ranges as if they were indicative of good health instead of indicative of the average of a sick population. So those improve. And I think what you're asking is if thyroid function goes down and if that's okay. I generally see it go up. I've seen in a few isolated cases that some of the thyroid hormone, like free T4, free T3, over time will come down a bit. But also the TSH comes down a bit, which means the brain's happy with what's going on. And the reverse T3 comes down as well. So the ratio between free T3 and reverse T3 is good and is improving, even though the free T3 actually came down a bit and the free T4 actually came down a bit. But the TSH came down a significant amount. So that sort of would support Professor Steve Phinney's idea that when you're in a state of ketosis, you don't need as much thyroid hormone as you would in a normal state of non-ketosis, on a standard American diet. You need an abundance of thyroid hormone just to get the same job done. And but I honestly see that occasionally, but a lot of times I just see all of those things improve. The free T4, free T3, reverse T3 improving, and TSH improving. And sometimes I see the TSH go down, drop below 2. I literally had a patient yesterday who had, TSH of, 4.5, 4, 3.5, and then all of a sudden it went down, boom, 1.9. But the free T4 and the free T3, dropped by, 0.2 or something like that. Very small amount. But interesting, it did go down, and the TSH dropped in half, right? So the body was happy with that. And so that's sometimes what you can see. So you have to sort of be a bit more, in tune with things and look a little closer. There's a number of different markers that signify thyroid health, and also just how you feel. Are your symptoms improving? Do you have more energy? Is your skin and hair better? Those all sorts of things that can improve. And if that's the case, and you're symptomatically improving, and you're seeing these other sort of signs that is like, oh, okay, well, that number went down, but these other ones improved. Interesting, then overall you're saying, okay, things are getting better. So it's largely the same. So the thyroid blood markers, largely will improve. There are some cases where you'll see that sort of example where the raw numbers like the free T4, free T3 might go down a bit, but the TSH goes down as well. So it's interesting. So it's likely in that case that the body's actually doing exactly what Professor Phinney says, which is not needing as much thyroid hormone, and your body's working just fine. Annabelle, the Happy Carnivore, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you, Dr. Chaffy, for everything you do. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And hopefully that this is helpful. It's, I do try to make all my videos available, and I want people just to have access to them and get help by them. And these question and answer things are fun to do, and keeps me on my toes as well, and sometimes presents me with new scenarios and issues and situations that I wasn't necessarily aware of, and makes me think about it, which is always good as well. So hopefully people find this useful. And yeah, we just got to keep moving. This is a grassroots movement that is actually catching some traction, and we're getting more mainstream attention, even if it's just to call us crazy, but not as many are calling crazy. The Daily Mail, for some reason, is picking up a number of carnivore success stories. They called me crazy. They said, look at this, what this crazy doctor is saying on 60 Minutes Australia. That's wild. And then after that, there were a number of people that went on it and were like, hey, look, I improved my life. This went all better. And it was actually a positive piece, which is very interesting. So, we're seeing more of that. And so just keep doing what you're doing. There's more and more evidence every day that what we're doing is correct. And more and more people are improving their lives. We're not getting swaths of people saying, wow, this ruined my health by any stretch of the imagination. The only people that I've seen that say, well, it didn't work for me, didn't say, wow, it hurt my health and I was damaged. They said, yeah, I carnivore didn't work for me, and that's really a shame because I couldn't lose weight. However, my autoimmune issues got better. I came off my medications. My blood pressure was better. I slept better. I had better energy. This was better. That was better. And to me, that sounds like it was working really, really well. It just wasn't working in the way that second that you wanted to, which was focused on weight loss, which was the main reason some people do come to this. And, it is the case that it takes a little longer for some people to lose weight. And there's a lot of hormonal reasons and physiological reasons, metabolic reasons for that. And sometimes, those things need to heal and correct before you're going to be able to lose much weight. But your health is improving. And that's the main thing. And so if you stay on it and you just say, hey, look, my health is getting better. I'm feeling better. I'm going to trust the process and just see this through, like Kelly Hogan did, where she actually gained weight for 6 months. And then she was like, no, these people are telling me they've been doing this for 20 years, some 50 years. And this is what they see. You don't necessarily lose weight right away. A lot of people do, but not everybody. And so your body has to heal. Your hormones have to, your leptin has to come down. Some people have massively elevated leptin. It is extremely hard to lose weight by any measure, by any means. If you have massively elevated leptin. When that leptin comes down, which it will on a carnivore diet, you start losing weight. And she did. And so she stuck with it. She said, I'm just going to trust the process and just keep going. And what do you know? She lost a bunch of weight. She kept it off. She's very, very healthy. So stick with it and focus on your health. DWBPQFPG, thank you very much for the very generous super chat. I don't know if that is short for something or if that's just for fun. But they say, hey, Dr. Chaffy, I've been carnivore since June 2023. In 2014, I suffered a depression skull fracture, subdural hematoma, and had a craniotomy. I'm very sorry to hear that. That sounds awful. How capable is the brain of healing from that kind of trauma? And is that why my appetite is still massive? That's a very good question. The literature on this, says that if you go on a ketogenic diet, this, early on, this will improve recovery from a traumatic brain injury. I don't think they've had any studies on long distance traumatic brain injuries, but we do have studies on traumatic brain injuries, recovering from them in the acute phase. And that shows improvement. That shows marked improvement on a ketogenic diet, which makes sense. Your brain needs fat. It needs ketones. Those ketones run your brain. There's optimal energy for your brain while it's healing. That's clearly what you want. And then those ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, reconstitute into fatty acids, and help rebuild the physical structures of your brain. And you have enough cholesterol and omega-3s, presumably, and hopefully to help rebuild the physical structures of your brain. We also have studies in concussion that if you are in ketosis at the point of concussion, that this massively reduces the amount of inflammation and damage that the concussion confers on your brain. You want high ketones. This helps reduce inflammation. This helps obviously heal the brain. Speaking with Dr. Paul Mason, who's the expert in this, he said that it's not enough to go start a ketogenic diet once you have the concussion, because it can take a couple days before you get into true ketosis. And the first 48-hour period is the most important part. So you could take exogenous ketones, but you'd have to take them sort of every 2 hours on the hour. And that's very difficult to do. And, sort of after 48 hours, might not be helpful, but, it's worth it. Look, if I was in that situation and I wasn't in ketosis and I had a big concussion, and I had access to, I mean, Amazon's not going to get the ketones to you quick enough. So you'd have to have them on hand anyway. But, if you had them on hand and I would just, might as well, and do the best you can. Take these things when you can, and at least it might mitigate things. It might be better than nothing. But, we have these sorts of studies, and creatine has been shown to help recover from brain injuries as well, especially in the post-concussion phase, post-traumatic brain injury phase, in the subsequent weeks and months. High dose creatine, I believe in this study, and people should look this up, but I believe it was 60 grams of creatine a day for like 5 days or something like that. Don't quote me on that. That's not a prescription. It's just what my memory is of the study that Dr. Mason told me about was very beneficial. And this really helped the brain. Creatine in general is good for the brain at all times, and red meat especially has a lot of creatine. So if you're eating just red meat all day, you're going to get about 5 grams of creatine a day, which is the normal dose people take when they're bodybuilding. So these are all in the acute phase. And so, is that going to help people after the fact? Well, the traditional teaching is no, that after about 2 years, the amount, your brain is going to heal as much as it's going to heal. But that is not what I've seen. I've seen people with long-standing brain injuries, neurological injuries, spinal cord injuries make dramatic improvements decades after their injury. A very good example is my friend Dave Mack, who came on my podcast, and he had a stroke 30 years ago, and he did keto, he did Atkins, he did all these sorts of things, and he still had right-sided weakness and significant balance issues. Very difficult for him to go up and down stairs. He had to cling onto the rail with his left hand, which was his good hand, and sort of work his way up the stairs for 30 years. And then he went carnivore, and I think it was like in 2 months, his wife sort of mentioned to him, he's like, hey, you're not limping, you're walking normally. And he's like, wait, what, really? Film me. And she filmed him on the camera, and he was just like, yeah, I'm walking normal. Like, this is crazy. And now he said he's running up and down stairs. So that's 30 years after a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which damaged his brain and gave him right-sided weakness, persistent right-sided weakness in his arm and leg. So that's pretty amazing. I've seen people with other neurological issues. I mean, radiculopathy, pain and weakness that have been going on for people. I mean, people go to my video on chronic pain and fibromyalgia. Look in the comments. There are hundreds of people there that have improved their chronic pain, sciatica, radiculopathy, fibromyalgia. After a decade of being on opiates, they said it's like after a month on carnivore, I came off my opiates for the first time in 12 years. That was one of the comments there. And so, this seems to make a massive improvement, and especially in neurological recovery. I don't know the mechanism yet. I don't know exactly what's going on, apart from you're getting ketones into the brain, you're getting ketones into the nervous system, and your brain and nervous system like that. You're getting fat and cholesterol in there, and it's just allowing your metabolism and body to work normally and affect some changes. So I can't say that this is going to help you. I would be very hopeful that it would. I've certainly seen it help other people in dramatic ways. Cerebral palsy patients have come to me and told me that their symptoms have improved, that their spasticity, they have very locked up, tight muscles, because you have this lesion in the brain. And the definition of cerebral palsy is a stable lesion of generally unknown etiology that does not change. It's there from birth, and it doesn't change. You're born with it. It's never going to get better. It's never going to get worse. It's just there, right? So presumably there's some sort of injury in utero or during delivery that just damaged a bit of brain that just wasn't able to recover. And yet people are recovering as adults with cerebral palsy. Not completely, but it's improving their spasticity. It's improving that. So if you have an upper motor neuron lesion, so the motor cortex of the brain, if that part is damaged, you get really stiff muscles, right? For the muscles that they control. If you get a lower motor, you cut the peripheral nerve or something like that. It's flaccid paralysis. So you get spastic paralysis with an upper motor neuron lesion, right? So that's what they get. So they're very tight, and it can be painful, and it's not comfortable, and it's not nice. And so they have to get like Botox injections in those muscles and force them to relax. And yet just going on a carnivore diet seemed to help these individuals with that spasticity. So I'm just not going to discount anything. I'm not going to say, no, that's never going to work, because frankly, I've just seen so many things that you wouldn't expect to work, or at least improve. I can't say that this is going to improve dramatically. I can't say it's going to improve at all, but I hope that it does. And I've seen other people improve, like Dave Mack, who had a stroke 30 years ago and had weakness for 30 years and is improved. I think from what he was telling me, there is still some weakness there, but not so as you'd notice it. He's completely functional, whereas he wasn't before. And so hopefully this helps you. It certainly helps in the acute phase. And apparently it helps in the long distant post acute phase as well. So hopefully it does for you. And well, please let me know. I mean, it would be great to see what your experience is with it is, and that can help guide other people and give better advice. The more people that come forward and say, hey, this was my experience, good or bad or neutral, the more information that we have, and the better we can advise other people asking the same question in the future. But again, like everything else, it's going to improve your life in 1,000 other ways anyway. And so even if it doesn't improve those specific neurological symptoms, it will be well worth doing it. And I hope it is. So good luck with that. And just so everybody knows, I again have work today. So I've got 45 minutes before I have to go, and I'll have to make a break at that point. But I will get to as many questions as I can in those 45 minutes. Isaac Amundsen, thank you very much for the super chat. What role does nutrition play in adult intelligence levels? Is it possible to heal your brain and raise IQ with a proper human diet? So look, we have no data on this that I'm aware of, but it is the case that your brain runs better on ketones, and you're getting rid of things and brain fog and all these other sorts of things that impede the normal functioning of your brain. And so I certainly find myself much more clear of thought, much more calm, and that's very helpful in a lot of ways. And so obviously it's best to start this in utero. Preconception, mother's diet, being optimal is going to optimize their baby, and being, carnivore during pregnancy and breastfeeding, and then the rest of the kid's life is going to optimize that child's life and development, including their brain. We know that pre-agriculture, the average brain size was 11% larger in adult males and 17% larger in adult females. And that was immediate. That wasn't hundreds or thousands of years. That was immediate. And that's persistent until today. So, that's developmental, that's nutritional. So that makes a massive difference, obviously. And that is also, even though you're an adult and you're not developing and growing your brain, growing more bigger, larger, brain cells and lobes and things like that, it is the case that you can optimize its function, increase the number of connections. The more connections a neuron has, the more functional it is, the more it influences, and the more connections are inherent in your brain, the better your brain works. And so, yes, it is possible that you could increase your IQ, you can increase the functionality of your brain and nervous system. And we've seen that people improve their neurology. And so if you're playing the piano or the violin, or playing sports and rugby and darts and all these sorts of things that take fine motor control or large motor control, it can be improved, and your brain can be improved in its functionality even if it doesn't improve in its size. So there's no actual studies that I know of, because I mean, I don't think anyone's really asked that question and tried to test it, but it would be interesting, wouldn't it? You get, 100 people, 1,000 people, if you could, do an IQ test and then put them on a carnivore diet for a year, test their IQ at the end of it. I mean, there's going to be so many other factors as well. You don't know, but if you sort of randomize and control and had enough people, you could get some good information. But that would be interesting. And my guess would be yes. Just from a mechanistic point of view, you're going to make more connections. You're going to optimize your brain in a lot of ways, which will make you inherently more intelligent. And so, yes, I think that's the case. And also, you're not doing things to your body that can detract from it. There's an Oxford study in 2008 that showed that vegans after 5 years shrank their brain by 5% brain volume. Okay. And so, oh, this is so great. So you're literally shrinking your brain. And, we see this in neurosurgery as well. That people's spinal cords atrophy and get thinned out because of the demyelination from their poor, horrible, miserable diet. And so, you're not doing that, so you're not going to have that atrophy. You're not going to have that damage. You're avoiding these various causes that, can damage someone's brain and neurology if they go on a vegan, plant-based, horrible, miserable diet. So it'll stop things from damaging your brain. Just taking off that anchor is always going to be a good thing. And then, adding further development is going to improve it as well. So I would guess yes on that, but we don't have studies that I know of.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
Six Tail Time, thank you very much for the super chat. Whole beef loin, would like more info on how long to age in a package before opening and cutting into steaks and roasts. Open and carve right away, or better to delay? Thanks for all you do. Well, it depends. If you leave it in the package and it's sealed, it's not broken. That seal's not broken. The sort of vacuum sealed thing on the loin, it is called wet aging, and so the enzymes just start breaking the cells down from the inside and I guess pre-digest it to a minor extent. It's not like soupy by the time you get it out of there, but that's called wet aging. And so you go to these really nice steak houses and they say, this steak was 30-day wet aged and 30-day dry aged, and it's delicious. That's the wet aging part of that. And then, leave it, in as much as 30 days. I've left beef as much as 6 weeks before. Don't try it with pork. I tried that with a pork shoulder once, left it for a couple of weeks. It was ghastly when that thing was opened up. And so can't do that with pork, but or at least I couldn't. At least that one didn't work. But with beef, it works just fine. And might be better to maybe just do it about the 4-week mark. And I've done it as much as 6 weeks, and that was fine for me. I probably wouldn't want to do it more than that. I'd be a bit nervous about that, but you do it as much as you want. Leave it for a couple of weeks. It's going to be more tender. The thought is that wet aging makes it more tender, and dry aging makes it more flavorful. And I certainly find that. And so when I wet age, it'll be just a nicer texture and consistency. And then I cut it up into big old steaks, put it on drying racks, on a wire rack, on a cooking sheet in the refrigerator. All of this is in the refrigerator, by the way. You don't have to freeze it, but you do have to refrigerate it. And so I have that in there, and it just dries out. It just sort of dehydrates it a bit, dries it out a bit, and it concentrates that flavor. It gets rid of some of this excess water that you don't really need, stops it from browning properly, and it gets a nice crispy brown crust, and it browns it much better, tastes much better. It's much more concentrated flavor. If you use salt, I don't really use salt anymore, but if you do, put the amount of salt on that piece of meat that you would want on that size of meat. Everyone's different. It tastes great. That salt just soaks in through the meat, and it's delicious. So so you don't have to do it at all. You can open up right away. But if you do wait a couple of weeks, it actually does taste better. So I buy it sort of in bulk. So I'll get like 3 of these big loins at a time, and I'll open one up and put that into steaks, and then the others are just resting. And then it takes 10 days or so to get through that big loin if it's just me. And then you open up the next one, and then the next one, so it ends up being about 30 days or so by the time I open the last packet, potentially. And it tastes great. So yeah, that's something you can do. Mona Shabir, thank you very much for the super chat. I've been diagnosed with gliosis and cephalomalacia in my gyrus recti. Have you had experience with this condition? Does line diet help? Yes, that is something I've, we have had patients with that sort of issue in the past. I haven't seen anybody on a carnivore diet with it, but the same sort of principles apply to any sort of neurological recovery, which is you want the proper nutrition, which is ketones for your brain, and you want to be able to have a lot of fat and cholesterol available to help heal your brain. There's different causes for different things, and there can be many causes for the same thing. And so it just depends on that. I don't know in particular. I haven't seen someone with your condition actually try a carnivore diet, unfortunately, but I would expect things to get better in other ways, obviously. And I've seen a lot of neurological recovery and improvement, and at least you're putting yourself in a position, with your best foot forward for any sort of healing that your body might be able to do. You're giving your body the proper nutrition, you're putting in the proper metabolic state with ketones as opposed to glucose, which it doesn't work as well on, and you will take away some of the roadblocks and barriers to your brain healing and recovering. So I like the traumatic brain injury question earlier, I would hope that at this point that it would help, but I haven't seen anyone in that, particularly with gliosis and cephalomalacia, try a carnivore diet as of yet. And so I can't really give you even anecdotal sort of clues, but mechanistically, this is something that improves the brain and neurology anyway, and will improve your health in a lot of other ways as well. And I hope that helps. And please do let us know how that goes if you do indeed try a line diet or a carnivore diet. And if it helps or if it doesn't help, it's good to know. It's good to know what what this can help with. So good luck with that. Younglo Tarot, I'd say. Thank you for the super chat. Hey doc, jumped right into strict carnivore pretty quick. Got a huge and troublesome keto rash 2 months in. It should go away, but my body went into great shock and stress because of it. What to do? Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. That's not fun. Speaking to a dermatologist in Canada who reached out to me, actually after one of these lives, he thought that these sort of keto rashes were actually just from releasing, built up toxins that are in the adipose tissue and the fat tissue. And so when people lose weight, they sort of release these fat soluble toxins that our body sort of sequestered in our fat to sort of keep it out of our general circulation and systemic circulation. And that obviously when you're releasing these toxins, they have these sorts of effect. Your body needs to detoxify them and get rid of them. And so, yes, it should be temporary. It should go away. The other issue is, like oxalate dumping. That's an idea as well that can cause manifestation in any organ. But that too, should pass, if it were just getting worse and worse and worse. Sally Norton has set out a protocol where if you add in and people think like, oh, take high dose oxalates and that don't do that. Low oxalate, a little bit of oxalate, like 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams of oxalates. And that will sort of stop it from dumping and releasing. all these oxalates to such a large degree. That's the idea. And so you don't want a massive ingestion of oxalates. You want a small, tiny, little bit of oxalates. And that sort of slows down your body's dumping of the oxalates. If you are dumping oxalates and you have high oxalates as a result, the last thing you want to do is take in high oxalates, and then you just have the same problem. Maybe it stops you from dumping the oxalates, but your oxalates are still up and high, because you just introduced them through your diet. So hopefully that goes away. If it is, from, just the stored little toxins, that will just take time to work out. And hopefully that it stops being as horrible. And if you're going into shock, true shock is, dropping your blood pressure because you can't perfuse your tissue, or, to the point that you can't perfuse your tissue. So hopefully that's not the shock that you're talking about, but stress certainly, and being upset by it is very understandable. And sorry to hear that. Hopefully that settles down. Hopefully that improves. And hopefully that doesn't last too much longer. If it keeps going, maybe think about, oxalates and doing like a very low oxalate sort of tea or something like that. Maybe, but you can take a look at Sally Norton's work for more on that. But hopefully this is just, like you say, just a bit of a keto rash that would be just from dumping these sort of toxins that will just clear itself up and go away on its own. And that seems to be what a lot of people experience, is they get these weird rashes, weird symptoms, weird joint pain, and it goes away and it doesn't come back, which is the ideal. Apple Core, thank you very much for the super chat. Carnivore diet, a few months, male 47, 5'8", 150 pounds, about 10% body fat, very good shape. My lipid panel came back with HDL 100, triglycerides 89, LDL 515. The rest of my blood work was good. Thoughts on the LDL? Well, I think that's good too. I don't think LDL is a problem. I don't think LDL has ever been the culprit in heart disease. That was a fraud perpetrated by the sugar companies, and that's a hard fact. We know that. That's published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2016. Their own memos, their own words, their own documents stating how it was a fraud and how they paid off various professors from Harvard and elsewhere to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies to make it appear as if cholesterol caused heart disease, when in their opinion, it was more likely sugar. And then to exonerate sugar and say that it was safe because they had to, we have to protect our product. I mean, that's just evil. That's just ridiculously evil shit. And so I don't know the best, way to temper against that. They weren't supposed to, make these claims as independent researchers. They were being paid by the sugar companies and they were supposed to disclose that. That's illegal not to do that. And so, but they did. And it wasn't until, nearly 50 years later that we found that out. So it was just, so they got away with it, bastards. And so, we just have to remember that and just don't trust any of these assholes. So your triglycerides are great. Your HDL is great. There are studies showing with 11 million people that higher LDL cholesterol actually corresponds with longevity. You live longer if your LDL is higher. There's a study out of Sweden just this past year with 44,000 people showing, looking at the biomarker, the best biomarkers to predict living over 100. And they found the best biomarkers to predict if you were going to live over 100: low insulin, low fasting insulin, high total cholesterol. So what the hell are we doing here? I don't think that that's a problem. I long for the day that we just stop even asking and worrying about cholesterol. I never test cholesterol unless someone specifically asks for it. I think it's a waste of time. There are useful things that you can find from that. The LDL being low is not one of them. Except for the fact that it predisposes you to infectious disease, death from cancer, and shorter lifespan. So that's bad. Don't want that. I don't think that it's a positive thing to get your LDL cholesterol down. Artificial. You're just forcing your body, like your physiology is putting your LDL up. When you just don't eat for 3 days, your LDL will go up exactly the same amount as you do there. It's a metabolic state change. And when you exercise, your LDL changes. When you have sex, your LDL changes. When you fast or when you eat, if you fast for 10 hours as opposed to 12 hours, your LDL is going to be different. If you fast for 16 hours, it's going to be higher than it would be at 12 hours or 10 hours. This is stupid. Like we are going out of our way to ignore what LDL is actually doing, which is transporting and carrying fat energy to your liver and your body for an actual function. And, the longer you fast, the longer you don't eat carbohydrates, the more fat is going to be produced, the more ketone fat energy is going to be mobilized, taken to your liver to, go through gluconeogenesis and make blood sugar and glycogen. And, so the more you're going to need, so you eat carbohydrates, your liver doesn't need to make carbohydrates. In fact, it's doing everything it can to desperately lower your carbohydrates. You stop eating carbohydrates, well, your body starts making carbohydrates. Your body's supposed to make carbohydrates. That's its normal, natural state. That's a normal, natural state of nearly all life on Earth. And so you need to mobilize your energy from your fat to your liver. What carries fat to your liver is your LDL. It's a carrier molecule. That's it. It does not cause heart disease, period. It never did. It never did. The studies that said that were fraudulent. You look back at their own data, it doesn't even show a correlation between higher cholesterol, higher LDL cholesterol. In fact, some of them showed an inverse correlation with it. So I just don't worry about it, and, I would encourage you to look up, Dave Feldman and Dave Feldman's work on the lean mass hyper responders. And, he's been doing a lot of work with, Dr. Nick Norowitz, who's a, PhD, out of Oxford. He's completing his MD at Harvard at the moment, and he's involved in a lot of this research because he spotted the bullshit too. They've all spotted the bullshit. More and more people are spotting that this is bullshit, and they're putting out a lot of great information and studies. So look up the lean mass hyper responder trials data that have just been published. You're in that category, and you're a lean, fit person who has this big spike in their LDL. Mine is probably similar. Couldn't care less. My HDL is triple my triglycerides, and I feel great. And I'm not having any sort of medical issues as a result of this. I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I did for 5 years in my early 20s when I had never been in better shape, never been able to perform as well athletically or intellectually or physically. So it's just a con. It's just a bloody con, and it needs to go away. Annabella, the Happy Carnivore, thank you very much for the super chat. My butchers gave me 2 kilos of Parsons Noses. What the hell is that? I feel I've gotten the next level carnivore. Do you think that if I ate only Parsons Noses that it would a fat fast? I don't maybe be a fat fast. I don't know what a Parsons nose is. Is that the nose of some sort of animal named a parson? I don't know. But that is creepy as hell. I don't know. I'm sure it's good though. Like it may be very fatty. I don't know. Look, if it's a part of an animal's body that we would normally eat and doesn't have a poison sac or something like that, then I think it's fine. As long as it's got enough, fat and protein and nutrients and things like that. Pope's nose, Parsons nose, or Sultan's nose is the fleshy protuberance at the rear end of a bird. Okay. Usually a chicken, duck, turkey, and a culinary. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's what it's a little fatty stump that tail feathers come off of. Gotcha. Super weird. Never heard that before. Okay. Well, there's a lot of fat there. If you want to do a fat fast, I mean, you can. You just do it with butter. You could do it with that. I don't necessarily recommend people fast at all. I don't know that you have to or need to. If you want to, that probably would work just fine. It is very fatty. There's really not much meat in there. So if you wanted to do a sort of a fat fast, that could probably be fine. But I don't think you necessarily need to fast unless you have a cancer diagnosis, and then that can be beneficial for that. But I don't know that. But yeah, it would be fine. But if you wanted to, you certainly could. I don't fast myself. I don't think that's necessary unless you are a then you specific medical conditions like cancer that can be beneficial. Okay, we're sort of probably, let me see here how many more questions we have. I think we've got probably enough to get through in the next 20 minutes before I have to go. So why don't we not do any more super chats, everyone? I'll try to get through these ones, and then we'll go from there. So Cyber Goose, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Chaffy. For how long does it take the body to reach normal levels of statin-free body after quitting statins? I stopped taking statins 5 days ago. Thanks a lot. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it goes by the half-life. If you're taking a statin every single day, presumably, you build up to your normal serum levels that you want after 5 half-life cycles. And so you have to take these things at certain intervals in order to build that up. And so, it should be, you should be fairly well out of this, have that stuff fairly well out of you after, 5 days or so, a few days, week or something like that. Be fairly soon anyway. I don't know the exact half-life on statins and exactly how long it would take, but, any sort of medication you take daily would have, a shorter half-life that would get out of your system in a number of days. So that should be, you should pretty much be there at this point. Yeah. Louise Kelly. Louise actually went to medical school with someone named Louise Kelly. I doubt this is that person though. Been on carnivore now for 42 days. I'm 60. Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not the Louise Kelly I went to school with. She wasn't in her 60s or in her 50s at that time. Been on carnivore now for 42 days. I'm 69 with chronic kidney disease. 3B, type 2 diabetes, heart bypass, and heart problems. My sugar was great, but have a kidney infection, and now sugar has gone up. Why? Well, that's a good question. It depends on your infection. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know exactly why your sugar levels would go up with your kidney infection, unless it's just, your body's trying to, just mobilize more energy to sort of fight the infection. I mean, generally the bacterial infections do better with, higher blood sugar. So that's not great. Type 2 diabetes, if you're on medication, it could just be that some medication that you're on for the infection is interrupting your diabetes or interrupting your diabetes medication. If you were put on steroids, that would definitely make your blood sugar go up. But if you had, a lot of, inflammation in the kidneys and they wanted to sort of preserve that, sort of a tricky situation, giving someone steroids in the context of an infection, but it is done sometimes. But I don't know if they would do that for a kidney infection. So could be medication related, could be medication that you're on, could be medication that you've been put on that can derange your blood sugar, or interacting with your previous, your diabetes medication. I wouldn't worry about it too much. This is something that is a short-term acute issue. So, whatever's happening should get hopefully resolved. Kidney infections are trouble. And so, you need to, treat that aggressively, with the help of your doctors. And, kidney infections, pyelonephritis is one step away one short step away from sepsis. It's a big deal. You need to be on top of this. Once that's done, your blood sugar and everything like that should go back to normal. If this is medication related or infection related, it'll go away once that infection goes away, once that medication goes away. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's not the end of the world if your blood sugar goes up a little bit. If it's some sort of medication issue and something that some sort of interference that you can sort of stop, great. But if you need to be on certain medication, that medication is causing your blood sugar to go up, I would just listen to your doctors and clear this kidney infection, then go back to doing what you were doing before. Your blood sugar will get back to normal. Things will get back to normal. It'll be fine. Absolutely relative. Thank you for the super chat. I am the one who had headaches and blamed on chewing. Your advice on SBG's steak and butter gal to watch my being hydrated helped. Very good. Thank you. Down 75 pounds in 11 months. Female 52. That's awesome. Really, really, really great job. Probably some of the people that haven't had dramatic weight loss early on, can get frustrated seeing that, but just know that it can happen. It does happen. And so eventually it'll get there. Your body just takes a long time to heal, and you'll get there. And, really well done on the weight loss and the health improvements. And I'm glad that advice helped. Hey, GK, thank you for the super chat. Is it safe for me to do the carnivore diet if I have thalassemia minor? It's a blood disorder. I am worried about iron overload due to large amounts of red meat consumed in diet. No, I don't think there's any sort of issue. It doesn't matter what your particular genetics are, your particular genetic traits are. The only genetics that you need to worry about is are you human? If your genetics satisfy that criteria, yes, carnivore diet is for you, because that is what we're designed for. I've had patients who have had markedly elevated iron levels to the point that they would have to get regular blood. They would have to, give blood regularly to keep their iron levels down. They didn't even have hemochromatosis. Ugh, tongue tied today. They didn't even have hemochromatosis, and so it was just that they functionally had it. Because they had to give blood to get their blood levels down. And then they went carnivore and they said, okay, well, let's see what happens. They didn't give blood for 5 months. We checked there, and normally they would give it every sort of 2-3 months, and checked his blood, and his iron levels actually came down on its own. It actually came down sort of to a more normal level, better than what he normally would achieve with blood donation. So no, I would not expect you to have a problem with that. It's not just about how much iron is coming in. It's about how you metabolize iron. It's how your body uses iron and properly uses iron. So no, I would not expect you to get iron overload. I would expect your individual, genetic issues to be optimized, in fact, by this. You may still have problems. People with hemochromatosis may still have problems. But largely what happens is they improve. Maybe they don't improve all the way and they don't have any problems anymore, but they improve. That has been my experience with this. And so I would not expect you to have any problems with doing carnivore with thalassemia minor. And in fact, I have patients with thalassemias, various thalassemias, and they do fantastic. So that is actually something I have personal experience with. And no, they don't have any problem. They do very, very well. Matthew Trapp, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm a 31-year-old male with extremely poor circulation, constantly cold hands and feet, even in warm temperatures, temperature environments. Will carnivore help this? Well, it certainly can help your circulation. Cold hands and feet can be from circulation. It can be from thyroid issues. It can be from a number of things. It should help circulation. Depends on what the cause of your circulation is. But people with vasculitis seem to improve on this. People with thyroid issues improve on this. And so, there's a number of different, potential causes or, for your your symptoms that you're describing. So it's hard to say, is carnivore going to help that, because there can be a number of different things, causing it. So it depends on the cause. It depends on what's causing your issues. But there are certainly a lot of issues that, can present like that and cause those sorts of symptoms that do improve on a carnivore diet. So hopefully that helps, but it depends on your particular issues, but it's well worth the try. And I would, again, expect you to improve in 1,000 other ways as well, along with that. So even if it doesn't help that, you're going to be, very thankful that you did this. Lisa Mirabella, thank you for the super chat. I'm not seeing a question attached though, but maybe further down, there's one. Philip Freytag, thank you for the super chat. I have bad tinnitus or tinnitus. Have people found carnivore helpful? Yes, actually. So that seems to be an inflammation, of your auditory nerves, and this can be reduced with a keto carnivore diet. Ketones up, spread, inflammation down, and you remove out other sorts of things that can cause inflammation and irritation to those nerves and others. And so, yes, a lot of people have improved their tinnitus with carnivore diets. So good luck with that. Be as close to pure red meat and water as you can for best results. Fatty, a lot of fat, a lot more fat than you're used to eating. I tell people you eat a lot of fat, and, I'm definitely eating enough fat, and they're horribly constipated and having symptoms that you would normally see when people aren't eating enough fat. It's okay. Well, you need to eat enough fat. Well, I'm definitely eating enough fat. No, you're eating more. You're eating a lot more fat than you've ever eaten in your life, but that's not actually enough fat. You need even more. So tons of fat, 1 to 2 grams of fat for every 1 gram of protein. Aim for that and adjust from there for your own body's needs. Pete Mayer, thank you very much for the super chat. 2 blood clots in the past 10 years. Lots of tests, but all inconclusive as to the root cause. On Eliquis for 5 years. Will carnivore diet help me get off this net? The problem is you don't have a diagnosis, and so you just have unexplained blood clots. So there's no real telling, what can be done here, and if carnivore can help that. If you don't have any sort of specific genetic issue that they've found, it could be just, a constellation of issues that have all just sort of added up to the perfect storm to give you some blood clots. But either way, you seem to have a propensity for them. And the only way to really know if a carnivore diet is helping is if you went on a carnivore diet for a period of time, a few months at least, and then stopped the Eliquis and then just rolled those dice and see if you get a blood clot again, which I would not recommend doing. I don't think that's a very safe idea. Could very well be that you'd be fine, but it's a complete guess. It's an utter guess. And so, if you've had 2 blood clots, those can be deadly. Those can kill you. You get a blood clot in your legs, go up to your lungs, get the pulmonary embolism. People die from that. It's a very serious condition. You can get, if people have other sorts of issues, such as, like an atrial septal defect, a little hole in the septum wall. Those clots can travel over to the left side of the heart, get into your arterial circulation, cause a massive stroke, and very serious problems from that. So I don't think that would be a safe thing to do, and I don't think there'd be any other way to tell if you are if you're safe from that. It could very well be the body improves in many, many different ways, and it could very well be that this is one way that it would improve as well. However, we don't know that. And so it is taking a risk with your life and your health, which isn't a great idea. But that, of course, is ultimately up to you. But that is the only way I can think of that you could show that one way or the other, is if you went on a carnivore diet, stayed on a carnivore diet, and then stopped your Eliquis and just see what happens. I probably wouldn't do that myself, though, but I'm not in that situation. Maybe I would feel differently about it depending on how much I did not like taking Eliquis. It does predispose you for risks in other ways. It's a difficult thing to contend with when you're, a trauma surgeon and dealing with, a 2 a.m. car accident with someone who's cracked their head open and bleeding profusely inside their skull, and you need to do surgery, and they're on one of these NOACs, these anticoagulants. So, there are trade-offs, but that would sort of be the way to do it. And I wouldn't really recommend that, because that's a big risk. Donald Farmer, thank you for the super chat. I bought a deep fryer. Nice. Filled it with beef tallow from the butcher. Even nicer. You can sous vide steaks in the tallow at 140 degrees, no plastic necessary. Game changer. No kidding. That's a great idea. Yeah, I actually wondered about just deep frying things, because when I have my pan, I have like a cast iron skillet, and I'll put half an inch of fat down there, like tallow, and I have sort of one of those silicone cones that come off of it, so you don't get a bunch of splatter everywhere. But then I sort of fry each side, and it's almost sort of deep frying that edge at any given time. But obviously, I've thought about just dunking things in a deep fryer, which would be great. But yeah, I mean, getting it at the exact temperature, that's a great idea. And and you could do it. You could do sous vide at 140. You could do it a little lower. I often like things a bit more rare than that, but obviously, people can sort of figure out exactly where they want that. But that's a great idea, or even just like a higher temperature and really getting it really super crispy on the outside, and then cooked however you want on the inside. That's a great idea. I should probably do that. I always worry about grease fires and problems with that, but people do this stuff all the time, and as long as you're safe, careful and safe with it, it's pretty safe. So great idea. Thank you for sharing that. That's all right. Now I want that. Okay. Thanks for that. Tyler Villasenor, thank you very much for the super chat. Does eating sugar, carbs, and vegetables inhibit child from reaching maximum height? What is your guess for potential max height for carnivore child with 2 5'6" parents? Yes, it does. 100%. I have no doubt in my mind that it inhibits your child from reaching their maximum height and brain capacity, intelligence, and physical capacity. No doubt in my mind. Why is that? Because every single population in history, when switching from a hunter carnivorous lifestyle to an agrarian lifestyle with plants, not even processed crap with the sugar and bullshit that we're eating today, but just plants, like grains and things like that. Those people have dropped dramatically in height. So pre-agriculture, average person was 5'9", and those were in the populations that were sort of the hunter-gatherer populations that were already using plants and said, hey, actually, we could plant these seeds and actually, make it a bit easier on ourselves. We don't have to go looking for this stuff. This is just going to be here. And they dropped from 5'9" down to like 5'4", 5'4", 5'5". Brains got smaller by 11% in adult males, women by 17%. And jaws got smaller, teeth got crowded, crooked, bad cavities, poor wound healing, signs of infection like tuberculosis in their spines, which was not seen before that. And there's an image pinned to the top of my Instagram channel, just Anthony Chaffee MD on Instagram, and it shows that it's a page of a textbook from I believe a professor at Cambridge, and I'll show it sort of here. And those are two different skeletons. The bigger one is pre-agriculture, and then there's post-agriculture. Very, very clear. And it says at the bottom, when populations around the globe started turning to agriculture around 10,000 years ago, regardless of their location and regardless of the type of crop, a similar trend occurred. The height and health of the people declined. Skeletal analysis suggests that these Neolithic peoples experienced greater physiological stress due to undernutrition and infectious disease. Okay? That's what's happening to your kid. That's what's happening to your kid and our kids and all of us. You're 5'6", you should have been 6 foot tall. Sorry. or more. Because the thing is, this has generational knock-on effects. And we know from Pottinger's cats that they fed them a group of cats raw meat. They were extremely healthy. If you fed them cooked meat, just cooked meat, not even this bullshit that we're feeding them now, it's kibble crap. That's not food. That's garbage. And they fed them cooked meat instead of raw meat, and they weren't as healthy. They weren't as vibrant. They still had kids, but those kids were smaller brains, smaller, less developed cheekbones, and then and less bone mineralization. The next generation, even worse, even smaller, even worse bone mineralization, lots of fractures, smaller brains, and they weren't healthy. They weren't able to reproduce after that. And then giving them raw meat, though, third generation cats got better and were able to reproduce. They were healthier. And then all of a sudden, they were able to reproduce, and the next generation, you expect, okay, they're back to normal. No, it took 4 generations to breed back to what they had in that just the whole time, generation after generation with the raw meat. So there are epigenetic, multi-generational knock-on effects to eating bullshit diet. So we're screwed. We're that third generation of Pottinger's cats that are just smaller, weaker, and dumber. And our kids are going to be better. And if we do carnivore, our kids will be better. And if they stay carnivore their whole life, their kids will be better than them. And maybe even the next generation will be better than them. And then you get back to where we're supposed to be. Because in their pre-agriculture, hunter-gatherer, they were 5'9", but on average. But you go back to when they were just hunting megafauna, because this is after megafauna died out already. You go back to when they're just hunting megafauna, they're just hunting mammoths. They could be anywhere from 5'10" to 6'4" on average, right? So these are big dudes, and we saw this in real time with the Native Americans and the Native Australians, the Plains Indians, the Native Americans that were just eating bison before the bison were wiped out, by the American government, which is a terrible thing to do. This was a study shown in 2001 showed that the Native Americans that were eating just bison, there's high fat carnivores, nothing else generally, that they were the tallest population of human beings on Earth. And people say, oh, even taller than the Dutch? Yes, even taller than the Dutch. The tallest human beings on Earth. They are not that anymore. And so we saw that in real time. We saw their height and health decline dramatically. And now they have a far higher rate of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, autoimmunity than the rest of the American population, eating the same crap that everyone else is eating, because they haven't had 10,000 years, 8,000 years, 5,000 years to adapt to this species inappropriate diet, this food that does not belong in our bodies. And so I would say that, your kids, could be 6 foot and above if they're just eating meat. And if you're eating meat, if your wife is just eating meat throughout your preconception, during pregnancy, and breastfeeding, those kids are going to be well above 6 feet, I would say, and potentially, their kids will be even taller than that. Looking back, my great grandfather on my mother's side, the guy was much taller than me. Different accounts. There's some accounts saying he was like 6'6", other ones he was like 6'4", but whatever. He was a tall guy. He was born in 1875. He died in 1975. Oh, but people only live 30 years. You're an idiot if you believe that. I'm sorry. That's just dumb. That's average life expectancy from birth. And anyone who pushes that is either has not spent one moment thinking about this, or is lying and trying to mislead people. And either way, just don't listen to them. And my father, was 6'4". His brothers are like 6'5" and 6'7", and their father was like 6'4", 6'5". His brothers were all pushing 7 feet. They were born at the beginning of the 19th century, or 1900s, 19th century, 20th century, the 1900s. And, the massive people, and we've just shrunk generation after generation. Right. So we're just looking at real life Pottinger's cats with people, because we're eating worse and worse things. Okay, I'm gonna have to rush some of these guys because I've still got a lot of super chats coming in, and I don't have time for all of them, unfortunately. The rabbits, the rabbithole.wiki. Thank you for the super chat. 30-year-old male, 190 pounds, fit, diagnosed with CPTSD, debilitating brain fog. On carnivore for 3 weeks. Familiar with Dr. Palmer. Any words of hope? Well, yes. I mean, this is something a lot. I mean, brain fog in particular. This is something that a lot of people improve on. Just having your brain run on ketones, getting rid of other sorts of things that can slow down your brain, it helps. So things with like PTSD, it's still sort of virgin ground, but there are more and more people that that come to a carnivore diet, ketogenic diet, like the work of Dr. Palmer shows. And just anecdotally, people are finding that this is helping PTSD and sufferers from PTSD. And so, yes, I think that it's very favorable. It's very positive. It's going to improve your life in a lot of ways, improve your health in a lot of ways, and is very powerful for mental health issues, of any description. Like, you're just going to feel better. It's not going to erase past harm and trauma, but it can help you deal with it better, and it can help you be in a position that that you are in a more sanguine state, that you can at least heal from this and be in a position that it doesn't control your life as much as it did. So I hope that it helps. I would expect it to. Just keep going with it. And you know what? The thing is that you're going to improve in a lot of ways anyway. And so just look forward to that. Let this heal your body, heal your brain, and just enjoy your life. It's going to improve your life in a lot of ways, and hopefully you can get back to just enjoying life and finding happiness. And I hope you do, and good luck with that. I'm only going to be able to do a couple more questions, guys, because I've got to get to the clinic, as I've got patients coming in the next sort of 20 minutes. UN, thank you for the super chat. In addition to a carnivore diet, are there other lifestyle suggestions to reduce exposure to toxins, e.g. personal care products? Many are plant-based, kind of water to drink, cleaning products, laundry. Difficult, right? There's so many different things. I mean, you shouldn't use those little Tide Pod things. They have these plastics that sort of gets in your clothes, that sort of get on your skin. Not what you want to do. In this sort of material of shirt probably isn't a good idea either. Type of water to drink, I would drink filtered water, certainly. If you're out in the country or something like that, and you have really good quality tap water, fine. But when they add a whole bunch of chlorine and fluoride and garbage to the water, and it could have radium. I mean, when I was in Tucson, they were talking about how there's radium in the water, and people were like, "Oh no, it's fine." They had to, I swear to God, they had commercials from the state government saying this. "Oh yeah, I just boil the water if I'm going to drink it." I was like, boiling water doesn't get rid of radium. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? And so filter the water, get a good water filter, get all that crap out of there. Personal care products, I don't use many of them. I use tallow for skin moisturizer with no scents and nothing else. I use tallow soap with no scents. That's why I teamed up with my friend Asher from Stone and Spear Tallows, as a brand ambassador, because like he makes a lot of these tallow products that are great. Some of them have scents. You don't have to get the ones with scents. I don't. I just get the normal soap and things like that. And there's like a shampoo sort of tallow version, things like that. And it's just, that's what I use. I keep it very simple, and I use tallow on my skin, and it's great. You will never find a better skin moisturizer than tallow. So yes, I think it is important to sort of reduce those things as well. You're very correct. Okay. I'm going to do, we'll see how much time I have, but maybe one or two more. So Leonard, thank you very much for the super chat. On carnivore for 2.5 months and feel great. I found out that I may have Gilbert syndrome. My bilirubin is 4+, and I have high ferritin, and hemoglobin is slightly elevated. What do you suggest I do? same thing. I don't think that, Gilbert syndrome isn't, first of all, it's not really symptomatic. It doesn't cause problems. It's just you have elevated bilirubin that doesn't really do anything. And it's not caused by a blockage or anything like that. So it's just something to know about. Your bilirubin is just going to be a bit higher. It's just going to probably stay that way. It may improve. It may not. I don't know. I know of a lot of people, who have had Gilbert syndrome done fine on a carnivore diet. I haven't really tracked their liver markers to know, because I haven't been my direct patient, if that sort of improves, but it doesn't need to. It doesn't really cause a problem. High ferritin and hemoglobin, that's not a problem. Having a bit higher hemoglobin can be for a number of different reasons. People who smoke have a little higher. People in elevation have a little higher hemoglobin. And people who are healthy have higher hemoglobin. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The high ferritin sort of, it depends on what you mean as high. Ferritin is also an acute phase reactant that can go up just because, you were sort of a bit sick that day or just being exposed to something. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I just, you keeping track of these things. And, if your ferritin is just going higher and higher and higher and higher, okay, maybe we think about what's going on, check the rest of your iron studies. Maybe that you need a blood transfusion or something like that. I would highly doubt that, though, because even people with normally who need blood transfusions, they go on a carnivore diet and it actually improves their energy or their iron metabolism. So I would expect you to just be fine. Just something to keep track of. Get multiple data points. Just one set of blood tests. It's just a snapshot in time. We don't know what direction things are going in or if they're even changing at all. So just every couple months, check your bloods again. If things are starting to go in a bad trend, then you investigate them. Let's see. Okay, I think that's all that I can do today, guys. I've got to make a break for work, or I'm going to be late. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming on. Sorry I didn't get to all the questions. Might be able to put some of them in the description, and I'll try to answer them in the comments. But thank you all very much for coming on, and please be here for the next premiere of my podcast episode on YouTube on Sunday. Should be at 5 p.m. on Sunday PST, Pacific Standard Time, so 9 a.m. in Perth, and people can figure out the times elsewhere. And that really helps, get this out there. The more people that come to the premiere, I get to chat with them. We get to sort of answer questions and things like that as it's going. So that can be fun. And it also just really helps the algorithm sort of get this out to more people. And that's always helpful too. So if people can come to that, if you're available, I would appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. And I also have more lives and Q&As, more direct Q&As with my Patreon group. It's just Anthony Chaffee MD, and we do weekly lives like this, but you get your dedicated questions through and get to talk and interact. So it's more sort of more face-to-face sort of experience over Zoom. And so if people want to do that, they can sign up for that at Patreon. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.